Hey yo, just a quick video I'm making here. I want to do this a little bit more often. I don't have time to, write coherent, thought-provoking X's anymore. And I call it X and I call them X's because that motherfucker owns this website, so you gotta deal with it. It's a stupid website anyway, so you just gotta deal with this idiot, renaming it X and running it. That's the situation. So it's an X. It's a Jamie Kennedy experiment up in this bitch. I woke up this morning and I just had to comment on the competitive portion of the MLB regular season being over. I feel like this might be some bitterness being a Yankee fan and, watching what we all know is a really disappointing offensively challenged team, injured team, for much of the season, really, basically, going from June on. So that is, we all know if you were a Yankee fan, you kind of walked away disappointed this year. So I don't know if this is some saltiness emanating from my pores, but I gotta say, zero drama on the last day of the season. Take a good look at this 3 wild card system. I'm not saying this is going to happen every year where you don't have the high stakes, but if there aren't close divisional races, you would have that wild card when it was even two teams. When it was even two teams vying for it, it might be up for grabs. What you're going to get is you're going to be relying on these teams that have 83, 84, 85 wins who arguably don't even belong in the playoffs, and they're going to be jostling. And that might be the only drama you have. And then you have teams who you might get a Mets-Braves situation like you did last year, where you have two excellent teams trying to win the division and stay out of the wild card round. So a lot of different thoughts on that. It does amplify winning the division, which for old school baseball, old school pennant race, going for the pennant down the stretch, going for the division down the stretch, I get that there's value there, but then you could also make the argument, well, the Mets, I believe they won 101 games last year, so why do they have to go into this 3-game series with San Diego under the old system? Under the old system, old system, they would have just made the playoffs, which I still feel in a lot of ways was the best system. Then I actually do prefer the 3 wild cards and the 3-game series to the 1-game playoff. So that's maybe faint praise because I absolutely hated 2012 to 2022, where you had or 2012 to 2021 with the 1 wild card. I couldn't stand it. For that reason, for a team like the Mets, who won 101 games, now had to play a 1-game death match with San Diego or whoever it would have been under the old system. So at least you did get 3 games. You got a best out of 3, and you got it at home. But we have zero drama on the last day of the season. Okay, that can happen. But that's a little bit of salt. But I have a lot of salt. These National League playoff teams, all I can really say is what the fuck. What happened this season? What made this season so weird, where you have a team that has a bad run differential in the Marlins make the playoffs, and you have a team like the Padres who had a plus 100 run differential. They have a chance to finish with a winning record today. But that is bizarre. And I really have to point to the extra inning rules. The Padres were god-awful in the extra inning ghost runner games. So when they're actually playing baseball, when they're playing real baseball where a runner doesn't start at second randomly because we are in the 10th inning and we're just going to randomly put a runner on second, they're a pretty good baseball team. They weren't a great baseball team. Run differential I'm a pretty ardent adherent to run differential, but I also understand every year you might get a team that has a great run differential who underperforms because their bullpen blows every close game they play. I don't really get into intangibles. Oh, they lack toughness or they lack grit. I mean, I don't. I really don't buy into that. I just don't feel like baseball is that kind of sport. But I do understand, a lot of years you'll have a team defy. You'll have like one team defy run differential, and you'll have one team defy run differential in terms of having a negative one and overachieving, and defy it in terms of having a really positive one and underachieving. So I understand that, but I'm just talking as a baseball fan. I mean, so in the playoffs, you could have watched Juan Soto, Xander Bogaerts, who had a great September, Manny Machado, who had a pretty good second half. Machado and Bogaerts didn't have their best seasons, obviously, but they're star players, and they had really respectable numbers at the end of the year. Soto had a phenomenal year. He set a career high in homers and typically, walked well over 100 times. You got Blake Snell. You got the Cy Young winner. Hader, sounded like he sounded like Roger Dorn. So many guys sounded like Roger Dorn this year. This was like such a weird year. Like the player who's only out for his contract and his bank account is like, they're always there, but like they're back in public now. Like, with George Kirby saying he doesn't want to pitch in the 7th inning and Josh Hader saying, no, I'm not getting a 4-out save. Like that was weird too. It was just kind of like the season kind of felt weird at times. It could just be me. But Hader's a great closer. He's another star player. They got a star closer. And you look at their roster and, the injury to Robert Suarez seemed so disproportionate how much that hurt them, not having the middle relief, not having strong middle relief. And in today's modern game, it's highly unusual, especially for a GM like AJ Preller, who is so proactive. It's so weird that they just couldn't figure out the middle relief the entire year. They didn't have like a half-decent starting pitching prospect in AAA or even AA who they could have called up and to throw 2 innings. Look at Johnny Brito, for God's sakes, on the Yankees. Johnny Brito didn't even have good numbers in the minor leagues, and the Yankees converted him to relief around, late August, and he was great. He was like one of the best relievers in baseball probably in September, which shows you how kind of accessible good relief is to find. And for the middle relief to undermine San Diego as much as it did, along with having some black holes, they had a great run differential, but they had some. Cronenworth had a rough year. Gary gave them something though after they picked him up. So catcher wasn't a wasteland for them. And Ha-Seong Kim had a great year, as he kind of usually does. He's a great defender and he can hit a little bit. I think WAR does oversell how good he is, but he's a good baseball player. It's just weird. Like how did this happen? Like, how do you have a team like the Marlins? And I'm not saying the Marlins have nothing going for them. I actually think Kim Ng maybe could or should win Executive of the Year. I give her so many props, for the trading for Jake Berger with his high exit velos, and they had a lot of trouble hitting fastballs, and they had this guy who has great exit velo against 4-seam fastballs, and he played great for them. Jesus Sanchez, who they traded for a couple of years ago, did some nice things, and he's not a great player, but with his slugging percentage, he's a credible bat that you can kind of put in the middle of the order. Obviously Chisholm, if he stayed healthy, again, would have had a really good year. And Arise, who she traded for in the offseason, was fantastic. So it's not like they don't have anything going for him, but with the injury to Alcantara, I feel like their pitching overall is pretty disappointing. They were trying to find a closer all year. They've kind of settled on Tanner Scott, but kind of an unsettled bullpen at times, which it has been. To kind of ding her a little bit, she hasn't really put together a really stable bullpen, but she's working with major budgetary constraints, and I think you got to give her a lot of credit, and I would certainly support her winning Executive of the Year. So they have a negative run differential, but they do have some talent. But then I got to listen to John Sherman, their fucking owner, saying how the Yankees went home, which is fair because the Yankees really weren't a good team. But he's crowing about how they were better than the Padres, even though it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, you spend no money. You spend no money. You're not a great owner. You come in and, the plan was, well, we're going to have the Houston Astros model. I mean, that was the word on the street. Like, oh, he's stripping it down right now, but they're going to do the Astros thing where once they have the pitching in place, the young pitching, like, they're going to spend on position players and they're going to bump their payroll up. He did not do that. He has not done that. That is why Derek Jeter left. Derek Jeter was right to leave. If anyone's sitting there saying, oh, Jeter looks dumb now because he left the team that made the playoffs, I mean, Derek Jeter knows baseball. Derek Jeter knows you have to commit and have at least a $70 to $80 million payroll in today's game, or $90 million or $100 million, which aren't, with inflation, it's not even a huge payroll anymore, not $100 million. So the guy is not committed to winning baseball games, John Sherman. He really isn't. He got bailed out by really yeoman's work by Kim Ng. But he's a loser owner. He will continue not to spend money. He will look at this kind of lucky outcome. And I'm not taking away what Kim Ng did, right? But they have a minus 50 something run differential. They're lucky. Their record could be flipped. It really could be flipped. So, shut up. Like, I can say that. I'm just a fan. Like, I'm sure a lot of GMs, I'm sure AJ Preller, waking up in the morning and maybe seeing that quote, or even Brian Cashman or whoever, where, the ownership's actually trying to win, right? And actually spending money, and moves didn't work out. Guys got hurt. Maybe in the case of the Padres, the luck was just horrendous. I mean, we have to be reasonable here as baseball fans. At some point, you have to say, like, that's bad luck. Like, I don't care. You want to say it's they didn't have enough middle relief, or they didn't execute in extra innings, or they got tight, or they played tight. Like, I understand that. But to this extent where they didn't, I mean, their record in these games was so bad. If it was 4 or 5 games better, they're in the playoffs. So I'm sorry. That's luck. And I kind of don't like that. Like, it's weird. Like, luck run differentials, it usually, the cream rises to the top in most seasons. And it's kind of weird to see a season where the luckier team just got rewarded over 162 games like this. And speaking of luck, Arizona, who I just find such a bland team. They have Zach Gallen. Corbin Carroll is, an excited. They made a great trade for Gabriel Moreno. So it's not necessarily an embarrassment at all, or that they're in the playoffs, but they also have a negative run differential. They really didn't play great in the second half. They have Corbin Carroll is a really, really good young player, but their offense as a whole, it's hack-tastic. They swing at everything. I don't think they have great plate discipline. So, like, they're an ugly lineup to watch at times, especially against a good pitcher. The Mets were their daddies for a lot of the year. It's been a weird year. And no, the Mets are not as good as the Diamondbacks. But, like, as a New York baseball fan, kind of seeing them against the Mets and seeing them against the Yankees, it's like, yes, this team could be, like, great if Jordan Lawler pans out, if Gallen keeps staying healthy, But even Merrill Kelly, I mean, it's control and command. It's not amazing stuff. I mean, they just don't wow you. Their bullpen's certainly nothing to write home about. And you look at the Cubs, I mean, shit, man. Cubs throw Justin Steele at you. They got Stroman back at the end of the year. Hendricks had a really good year. Obviously, Bellinger. I'm just saying, like, as a baseball fan, I'd rather watch, like, the Cubs with a really good run differential and the Padres with a great run differential and the talent they have than what the Marlins and Diamondbacks are throwing out there. And less so for the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks have more of a case of being a good team, a legitimately good team. But take a look at Arizona and San Diego's run differential. And it's kind of like one team got lucky, one team didn't. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know you might say, like, oh, you're looking at it too sabermetrically or whatever. I'm not a huge sabermetric guy. I'm not a huge WAR guy. Like, I'm a pretty big run differential guy just because I feel like that's how it should work. Like, the team that outscores the opposition should, like, have a good record at the end of the year. So the NL playoff field kind of sucks to me. It's a little bit of a turnoff going into these 3-game mini-series. I'm sure I'll be watching, but I don't think we're really seeing the best teams. I do not want the Marlins in the division series. and their owner popping shit. I mean, please. And again, that's with all due respect to Kim Heng. She's done a great job, but shut the fuck up, John Sherman. Like, your team had a minus 54 run differential or something, and you're standing there feeling with your chest out. I mean, oh my God, like that bothered me so much. So yeah, that's it. Just wanted to make my first baseball vid in the longest time at the end of the year. Maybe I'll make one about the Yankees and what the Yankees should do, which is spend a lot of money because they don't have enough internal answers for their problems. So they need to spend out of necessity, and I have some ideas, and we'll see if they do it. Because if they don't, they're going to be irrelevant again next year. But yeah, little baseball vid. Have a great day. So long.